All right, identification of inflammation is truly pretty easy and very inexpensive if we're going through a... All right, identifying inflammation is pretty easy when we're doing blood draws. There are a number of markers that can really initially indicate the probability of inflammation based on the levels that are coming back. Now there are deeper dives, right? Because blood is really that surface evaluation, that objective evaluation to really understand how your body's behaving and if you're producing excessive levels on this. And when you get this stuff drawn, I'm going to go through these a little bit, but when you get this stuff drawn, it's not just, you can't just rely on lab ranges, because most people that are getting these done are sick, okay? Most people. But what they're doing is the lab ranges is an average of everybody that takes that lab, that element, and then they standard deviation it by 1 and 2. So you're getting an average and you're getting the first 2 standard deviations. And it has no recollection of your functional levels, and that's where I look at these and I understand functional levels versus just lab levels, meaning like, oh, you're within range, right? That means nothing. It means nothing. Okay, so when we look at this, I'm going to go through these. First and foremost, lipids. Everybody gets cholesterol drawn. So you get cholesterol, you get HDL, you get LDL, and you get triglycerides, or you get the run-of-the-mill stuff. Now these cholesterols, these are just fats that sit inside of lipoproteins. So we want to know beyond face value, because lipids have gotten a bad rap. They're like the ambulance that's gotten caught at the scene of the crime and be like, you're the problem, which they're really not. That's for a whole nother discussion. But when we look at those at face value, they mean absolutely nothing, all right? And so what we do is we ratio these out. So there's a ratio way of looking at these to understand what type of dysfunction might be going on, or insulin resistance, or inflammation, or liver dysfunction within the lipids. But then what we can do is we can draw this even further, and we can get these lipoproteins. So we can look and fractionate out the LDLs and the HDLs and the type of lipoproteins that you have and the size and the density, so we know exactly what we're dealing with. Because if we have small little cannonballs of LDLs, yeah, those are going to punish the artery walls, but why are you producing so much of that LDL? So that we want to draw that out, because that's going to give us a good indication of what your lipid profile is doing, and ultimately some sort of inflammatory pathways that we can start to address. All right, C-reactive protein, high sensitive C-reactive protein are great inflammatory markers. So the more C-reactive protein that the body produces, the more problematic it is, the more inflammation that's being produced. And so then we have to take a deeper dive and understand where this inflammation is coming from. But it's a great marker to understand that inflammatory load that's in the body. When we look at high sensitive C-reactive protein, it's going to be a better indicator for the cardiovascular system. And then if it's super high, we're going to see inflammatory levels and possible infections, which would be more like an acute nature. All right, homocysteine. Homocysteine is an amino acid that's built in the liver, and what it does is it vasoconstricts our blood vessels. So the higher the homocysteine level, the more constricted our blood vessels are, which creates cardiovascular imposition, right? And so what we're looking at there in homocysteine, liver enzymes, AST, ALT, and then to an extent GGT. So when we're seeing a lot of these enzymes roaring, right? We've got dysfunction within our liver system, which is our detoxification filtration system. GGT, if it's super high, can give us an indirect indication that there is cellular stress, and cellular stress at high levels, and we're talking 200 and 300 in the GGT, is not a good sign for cellular function at all. Okay, sedimentation rate. So how quick and how heavier is the blood dropping and clumping together. So that's another good and a little bit more advanced inflammatory marker for some systemic problems and immune issues. So we could look at that. Fibrinogen is another one. So clumping together. So the more fibrous, the higher the fibrinogen, the more inflammatory disposition that we're looking at, again from the surface, from the blood level. And then blood sugar markers. So we're looking at A1C. Okay, so how much sugar is sticking to the blood, and that the higher the A1C, the more problematic to the way that our body functions. Then you're looking at fructosamine, which is sugar stuck to our proteins, which is a shorter term indicator of sugar problems in the body. And then we can look at insulin levels, and so how much is your pancreas spitting out, as well as C-peptide, which is the tail of the insulin insulin molecule, and it can give us a really good indication on how hard or how well our pancreas is working. So, and not to mention, an honorable mention is white blood cells. So if we have a skyrocketing level of white blood cells, we're looking at acute problems. But if we have a really bottomed out number of our white blood cells, we're looking at chronic problems. So that's going to give us an indication of what's going on with the immune system. So this is primarily what I look at when I'm looking for inflammatory properties. And then we're going to start to take a deep dive based on system and symptom burden. So system problems and symptom burden related to this to say, okay, we're going to take a deep dive into the intestinal system, or we're going to take a deep dive into whatever system is presenting. It could be your adrenal system, or your blood sugar system, or your immune system, or your cardiovascular system. And that's how the process of my functional medicine works to let that out of the bag, is that we start here, and then if we're seeing these inflammatory markers at abnormal levels, and we've got to take a deeper dive, because you're stirring an inflammatory process that is not good, and we need to address it at the deeper cellular levels, other than just, put the tape over the engine warning light. So let's wrap this up. That's exactly how we go about identifying inflammation. And when you can objectively see that these are in functional levels, and they're very low, and the marks are well, then we know that we're curbing inflammation at the blood level. That doesn't mean that you're not incurring this. It means that you're handling your inflammatory load pretty well. And again, that is the first thing that will be the game changer in any hidden roadblock or any problem that you're facing, or whether you're looking to optimize your health. So I hope you found that insightful, and I look forward to maybe taking a deeper dive into this. And that's why I always offer a 15-minute phone call to see where anybody starts, because everybody's in a different place. And so that's, if you're looking for help further on this issue, or want to take a deeper dive into it, just sign up for a 15-minute phone call. Put that on the schedule. I'm happy to get on the phone with you, and we can talk through this. So enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon.